مرحبا وأهلا بكم في برنامج داخل واشنطن. معكم مضيفكم روبرت ساتلوف. تفجرت من جديد أزمة عنصرية في أمريكا. قبل عامين أطلق رجل أبيض الرصاص على مراهق أسود في فلوريدا مدعيا أنه كان يدافع عن نفسه. لم يكن الصبي يحمل سلاحا. العام الماضي في ميزوري قتل ضابط شرطة أبيض رجلا أسود، وبقيت جثته مسجات في أحد الشوارع لساعات. لم يكن الضحية يحمل سلاحا. ثم مؤخرا ذهب رجل أبيض إلى كنيسة للسود في كارولاينا الجنوبية وشارك في لقاء لدراسة الإنجيل، ثم بدأ في إطلاق النيران. قتل 9 أشخاص في المذبحة. مرة أخرى تعود قضية الأصل العرقي لتختل موقعا في صميم حوارنا الوطني، ويستمر السؤال: لماذا ما تزال دولة انتخبت رجلا أسود رئيسا للولايات المتحدة تواجه مثل هذه المشكلة الصعبة مع الأصل العرقي؟ لمناقشة التحدي المستمر الذي تطرحه قضية الأصل العرقي في الثقافة والمجتمع والسياسة الأميركية، يسرني أن أرحب في برنامج داخل واشنطن بواحد من أكثر الصحفيين السود في أمريكا نفوذاً، وهو رولاند مارتن. Welcome back to Dakhel, Washington. I'm sitting here with Roland Martin, one of America's foremost journalists. Thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here.
Once again, the theme Black Lives Matter is in the headlines in a tragic way. This time, the setting is Charleston, South Carolina. How should we understand what happened in Charleston?
Well, I think for anybody who understands history, they have to understand that from even before the country was founded, the issue of race has been at play. Gerald Horne talks about that in his book about the slave rebellion and the founding of America, that the United States, 13 colonies, feared the British were going to abolish slavery. That was the economic foundation of the United States. And so even when America was fighting for its independence, race was at the heart of the founding of the country. So it's no shock 396 years later, we will be dealing with a terrorist. That's exactly what he is, because it's pathetic for somebody to suggest that if you are Muslim and they call someone terrorist, if they call Al-Qaeda, ISIS terrorist, well, this guy's a domestic terrorist who's also a thug. He was driven by hatred, by white supremacy. And so it is no shock that it still exists. So all of a sudden people are saying, how dare you walk into a church? The black church for 250 years has been under attack in America in various forms. And so this is not the first time, and I don't think it's going to be the last time.
So should we view this not as a case of deranged, isolated killer, or something deeper than that?
It is deeper because if you really want to expand this, here's someone who had a hatred of blacks, who targeted this pastor who was a state senator, and goes into a Bible study. The oldest person who was killed was 87 years old. The youngest person was 26. It could have been someone younger because a 5-year-old girl played dead with her mom in order for him to stop shooting, and he left. And so when you look at the United States is very good at challenging other countries, at telling other countries, blasting them about their human rights abuses, about their treatment of women, about how they treat, when it comes to human rights abuses, how they treat their members, countrymen and countrywomen. But America never wants to confront itself. And so we always want to change the definition. Oh, no. What he did, that's not terrorism, that's just a hate crime. Oh, no. This wasn't emblematic of what happens in America. This is a guy who was just crazy out of his mind. But where did he get it from? He got it from these hate groups that still exist in this country. He got it from their websites. This is a guy who was angered by the aftermath of the Trayvon Martin case, where a young black man was walking down the street minding his own business, talking on the phone with a female friend, and here you have George Zimmerman, a white Hispanic, who makes a decision that there goes a thug, I'm not going to follow him. This guy, Dylan Roth, he is angry at the reaction to Trayvon Martin, who's dead. And so, how nutty is that? And so this speaks to this fundamental problem that we have faced in this country, where African Americans have been under assault at the hands of whites in this country, and it is persistent. And folks act as if, well, it's no big deal, but we see it in our police departments. We see it every day. We even see it in the workplace when, and the studies have been done, if you have a black sounding name and a so-called white sounding name, the exact same resume, has a 50% less chance the black sounding name will get a call back for a job. That's economic terrorism, and it still exists in this country.
Just one more question about South Carolina, because so many of our viewers who are reading this story are probably trying to understand aspects of it. Why so much of a fuss about an old flag from a long time ago?
Well, anybody who understands history has to understand that South Carolina was the foundation of the Confederacy. South Carolina was the driving force succeeding from the Union. South Carolina, when you look at many of the Confederate leaders, they came from South Carolina. South Carolina is where you had the fiercest battles with the Union Army, where they fought to the bitter end in order to keep the institution of slavery. Beyond that, and this is the piece that people don't understand, there's a phenomenal book called Dark Bargain. And what it details is, it details the writing of the United States Constitution, and to show you how the founding fathers were willing to allow the racial hatred of South Carolina to exist. They pretty much put South Carolinians over the creation of this document. And so in Dark Bargain, the author details how those individuals absolutely ensured that slavery would be a part of the founding of the country, would be placed into the document, and they control the apparatus. Now, when you read that book, what you also understand is that those individuals who were writing the Constitution were forbidden from taking notes, but one of them did, and those notes were not discovered until 50 years after his death, where he told the story of how they even arrived. And so South Carolina has had this absolute focus, this zeal for the Confederacy. And so in 1961, Fritz Hollins, who was governor of South Carolina, a Democrat, which is irrelevant because you had racist Democrats called Dixiecrats, he put that flag, he raised the flag above the state capitol to mark 100 years of the Civil War. They still were angry that they lost. And that's what you have here. You have white racists who are still angry that they lost the Civil War because they wanted to protect the institution of slavery. All this crap with the Northern aggression, it was about taxation, that's all BS. This was about being able to continue slavery. And in 1962, here we are in the heart of the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Freedom Movement. The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom doesn't take place until a year later. They kept the flag up in opposition to civil rights. And so for all these folks who have been defending it's always about our heritage, no, and not only that, this is the other piece. The flag that was being flown is not the Confederate flag, it's the rebel flag. It's their battle flag. So it was the flag they actually carried into war. So it was different if you say, well, our heritage, we were part of the Confederacy, and so we were flying the Confederate flag. No. They were flying the battle flag because they were trying to send a signal in 1962 that we are doing battle with the federal government, we're doing battle with black folks to keep them from being full citizens. And so for the people who've been defending it, it shows that level of ignorance and hatred, and anyone who understands history knows what they have been promoting is a lie, and it's so deeply rooted that literally it has been deeply embedded in the history books. And so you've had generations of kids who have been trained that, oh no, this is just our history. And to understand how deep this is, in former Congressman Jesse Jackson's book, A More Perfect Union, there's a POW memorial in Georgia.
It's a prisoner of war, yeah.
But it's not. That particular prison was where the South, the Confederacy, tortured and killed Union soldiers. But when they created the monument, they changed the meaning of it so people wouldn't know its real history, and it's a prisoner of war monument. No, that's where the Confederacy tortured and killed Union soldiers. That's how the Southern racist senators have changed and altered American history to cover up the sins of the Confederacy, and people said, oh no, this is about our history. No.
But when you look at the reaction to Charleston, for example, there is revulsion from coast to coast.
Right.
Certainly progress.
No.
Would you not agree?
No. That was revulsion to Cheney, Schwerner, and Goodman being killed, which the anniversary actually was a few days after the Charleston massacre. That was revulsion in America to the bombing of the Birmingham church, 16th Street Baptist Church, when 4 girls were killed. Okay, you've always had that. Okay, the issue is not, has America been just traumatized and angered by such tragedy? The real issue is, what does America do after it happens? Does America want to confront the roots of such hatred? And that's the real issue. Now, the other mistake that Americans love to make is that when these things happen, we are so desperate to avoid the truth that we rush to, but hasn't things gotten better? Well, yeah, I can actually go drink out of a water fountain that doesn't say colored. I could I can follow you into the same bathroom and be in the same bathroom. I can actually stay in a hotel. Do all those different things. Totally get it. But the Pew Research Center in December 2014 dropped their survey. The average wealth of a white family in America is $141,000. For an Hispanic, $13,700. For an African American, $11,000. Between 2010 and 2013, the wealth of whites in America in the midst of a recession went up 2.4%. For Hispanics, it went down 14.7%. For African Americans, it went down 33%. And so when people say, oh yes, we've had progress, yes we have. But if you show me the median average wealth of an African American in 2015 compared to 1965, I'm going to show you it being almost the same. And so we have this illusion in terms of, yes, signs have come down. Jim Crow, the laws were changed, but Jim Crow, the racial apartheid system in America, Jim Crow had sons. Jim Crow had grandsons and granddaughters, and that's what we're still grappling with in America.
Okay, we'll come back in just a moment to talk more about race in America with Roland Martin. My guest today is Roland Martin. Roland is the host and managing editor of TV One's News One Now, the first daily morning television news program in history to focus on news and analysis of politics, entertainment, sports, and culture from an explicitly African-American perspective. He is known to viewers abroad from his role as the incisive political commentator on CNN, offering his views on politics and society in America. He is generally recognized as one of the most prominent and influential journalists in America today, regardless of color. In his career, Roland has been showered with more than 30 awards for journalistic excellence, including being named Journalist of the Year by the National Association of Black Journalists. On 3 occasions, he's been named by Ebony Magazine as one of the 150 most influential African Americans in the United States. Roland is the author of 3 books: Listening to the Spirit Within, 50 Perspectives on Faith, Speak Brother, A Black Man's View of America, and The First, President Barack Obama's Road to the White House. He is the former executive editor and general manager of the Chicago Defender, our nation's most historic black newspaper. Roland received his undergraduate degree from Texas A&M University and his master's from Louisiana Baptist University. He and his wife live here in Washington, D.C. I had April Ryan on the show not too long ago, and I want to ask you a question that I asked her. Black journalist versus journalist who is black. What's the difference?
Well, first and foremost, I run 3 black newspapers. I've been the founding editor of a black website. I've been the news editor of a black magazine. I have produced for a previous black cable network. And with TV One, we're the second largest black cable network in America. And I've been with us 10 out of our 11 years. When you are a black journalist, you're operating within, you also have folks in the black press, and you're operating in that particular space. And what I tell my staff every day, that what is different from what we do compared to if you are a black journalist, say at CNN or MSNBC or Fox News or the Washington Post or New York Times, and that is you have to wake up black every day. And what that means is when you wake up, you see stories through this very narrow lens of what is the black perspective with this. Not here's a story and then let's just go find somebody black to talk about it. But what is unique about this story that is of relevance to African Americans? So you might find, let's say on an entertainment side, you'll find mainstream media, you'll find white journalists who go gaga over the latest Kim Kardashian photo. Well, I got a black audience. So black women, 80% of my audience on TV One are black women. So the last thing they want to see is a woman who's not black with a fake butt and fake breasts and a fake face, and all of a sudden that's been defined as beauty. That's not what my focus is going to be. When we're looking at news stories, it's again, how does this story particularly impact African Americans? And so our view is totally different, and it's actually harder. It's easier when a story comes up, you can just do a story. Oh, well, we can go cover this plane crash. We can go cover this here. But what is unique about a story that speaks to our audience? That is the difference.
Should I take it from your comments earlier that economic issues are at the top of the agenda of black America today?
Absolutely. Well, what happens is, first of all, if you look at, I'll look at health for an example. If it's horrible numbers, African Americans are at the top. Take your pick. Diabetes, high blood pressure, cancer, doesn't matter. It's so bad that black women get breast cancer at a lower rate than white women, but when they get it, die at a faster rate. So more white women in America get breast cancer than black women. But black women get it, she'll die faster. Why? Healthcare, disparities in healthcare. And so there really isn't one defining issue, because for us, it's disparities, whether it's economics, whether it's healthcare, whether it's education, and all of this stems, again, from where we have been in this country. And when people, and it amazes me when I talk to whites who one, don't read. And I always joke that I'm living example of what slave masters never wanted, and that is a black man who can read. Because here's what you have in this country, and to understand this here, to understand it. First slave comes to America 1619. If you want to use 1968 as the barometer, let's just say 1970, okay? Because 68, Fair Housing Act, Dr. King is killed in 68, then you have Nixon comes in, he announces his black capitalism, affirmative action comes. So let's just say 1970. So from 1619 to 1970, African Americans were essentially enslaved in America, shackled and unshackled. So you said 1970, so 80, 90, 2000, 2010, 2015. So that means only 45 years, and we know this is not even remotely true, but only 45 years of America's existence since the slave first got here, that black folks have been free. So if you look at those numbers, you say, wait a minute, that's it. I'm 46. So that means only 45 years in the history of this country, black folks have been able to work anywhere, live anywhere, study anywhere, And then people wonder why, when you look at those stats, why the condition of African Americans is what it is. And that's a part that people never want to acknowledge. Only 45 years, and even in those 45 years, you still had to deal with lawsuits, EEOC, you still have housing discrimination patterns. And so we're talking about a group of people who have literally, for their existence from 1619 to present day, has had to deal with constant and repeated disenfranchisement in the United States of America. And so, yeah, we deal with economic disparity, educational disparity, because all of that matters.
Roland Martin, thank you very much for being with us
Appreciate
on
it.
Dakhel, Washington today.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. بهذا نصل إلى نهاية هذه الحلقة من برنامج داخل واشنطن. إذا كانت لديكم أي استفسارات أو تعليقات حول هذه الحلقة، وخاصة حول العلاقات بين السود والبيض في أمريكا اليوم، أرجو أن تراسلوني مباشرة على عنوان البريد الإلكتروني التالي insidewashington@alhurra.com. معكم روبرت ساتلوف. شكرا لكم وإلى اللقاء.